Today we've got a matchup of some awesome elites, Khorne versus High Elves. This is definitely a matchup that can skew towards elite units because both factions' elite units are incredibly scary, oftentimes to each other. One of the main interactions here is, of course, fire damage. Pretty much all of these Khorne elites here are going to have fire damage, so Stormrunner coming in hot and heavy. The Herald of Khorne on his motorcycle. We've got 3 Exalted Bloodletters, with 2 of them being rank 5, and another being the Regiment of Renown Hellforge Host, Knights of the Brazen Throne, and Heralds of Khorne, the 2 Regiment of Renown Monstrous Cavalry. And then some Furies already getting netted and blasted in the back by some Sisters of Avalorn, with Teclis leading the way, some Dragon Princes, and Swordmasters of Hoeth up front. Yeah, Silver Helms, that's pretty much it. So Furies pay a pretty heavy price. Looks like there's some Chaos Warhounds as well for some auxiliaries for Khorne. But very interesting. I will say Swordmasters versus Exalted Bloodletters baseline is basically an even trade, more or less. But certainly with the extra chevrons, the Regiment of Renown status, and this Herald also giving some splash attacks and extra melee attack, will certainly be decisive engagement in favor of Khorne. I mean, they'll definitely take some heavy damage, no question, from the Swordmasters, but brutal bloodletters, oh man, looking absolutely fantastic. Great thing about elite builds too is I can focus in on the cool looking units and watch them get, you know, blasted by each other basically. Yeah, the Furies rush in. They really, given the damage they've taken, can't get past the melee defense of the Sisters. Net here on the Heralds of Khorne's Fury. And of course, the fire resistance of the Dragon Princes will mean these Khorne units are going to hit them for surprisingly low amounts of damage. That said, Dragon Princes also don't have armor piercing and don't have that great of AP values. I mean, yes, they have high charge bonus. If they were somehow able to cycle charge the Knights of the Brazen Throne, they could maybe get some work done, but certainly here, they're just mostly ineffective against that 130 armor, even 100 armor, plus physical resistance for the Heralds of Khorne's Fury is going to be good, but the Khorne cavalry gets surrounded pretty quickly. Swordmasters do get devoured in the front line, and the infantry will now follow up, but again, that fire resistance does come into play. Speaking of fire, the fire damage, I suppose, for the High Elves units doesn't matter a lot. There's not much fire resistance for Khorne here, but they do have fire damage. It's synergized with the Kindle Flame of Teclis, of course, and magic, bypass the physical resistance. So those Sisters of Avalorn definitely outputting a solid amount of damage as long as they're able to be protected. But as soon as they get engaged by the elite Khorne, oh man, those Khorne cavalry just devoured that unit so fast. I wasn't even able to get a close-up. Literally noticed before they, didn't notice before they were completely gone. But anyway, Knights of the Brazen Throne continuing to fight here. Looks like a Flaming Sword of Ruin for Teclis. Buff up his melee units for a little bit of extra damage output, bypass physical resistance, synergize with Kindle Flame again, but just a lack of AP damage definitely coming back to haunt them. The High Elves here, Swordmasters coming back into play, very tattered, but still might be able to make a little bit of a difference, perhaps. Certainly the Exalted Bloodletter starting to run it out of steam. Sisters of Avalorn doing a little bit of kiting here, able to somewhat get away, but Warhounds come around for another go with 22 charge, 36 attack. They can definitely get past the melee defense of the Sisters of Avalorn on the charge. But still a little bit of a pitched, grinding engagement here with cavalry versus cavalry. Bloodletters supporting. Very cool engagement. Love to see some elites duking it out. And mostly demons here for this build from Khorne, but a handful of elite mortals as well. A lot of those demons are facing banishment at this point. Thankfully, stabilize leadership here. These Exalted Bloodletters is just doing just fine. They do have Swordmasters of those supporting. Dragon Princes wheeling around. Still quite a bit of HP left. Could perhaps make a difference. They can get rid of these hounds here. Maybe charge out this unit of Bloodletters. Nice quick shock charge, but it looks like the High Elf player is going to throw in the towel here, arguably a little bit early. I don't know. This Cav Blob here, just finishing off the last Swordmaster, would be really tough for the Dragon Princes to kill everything that's left. And Teclis really didn't have much in the way of damage output, which is one of the reasons why I don't totally love him here. The nice thing about the Herald actually on the Chariot is he's kind of a support slash anti-infantry damage lord, right? Sort of a support chariot, and deal decent damage, support against infantry very effectively, And as a result here, this frontline engagement was fairly decisive in favor of Khorne. And, you know, Teclis didn't quite have the right tools to support that 100%. Just as Vavarlorn did manage to get some damage out, but at the same time sort of overcommitting to having to protect them. Arguably, I think you should maybe just go all missiles, or sorry, all melee with High Elves, maybe with like 1 or 2 missile cavalry just for some flexibility. Hard to say, but generally, I don't know, High Elves melee power is quite potent here, and the money saved by, you know, cutting these, maybe cut some of the Silver Helms, bring obviously like a Teclis or something. Doomsage, pretty solid player. I don't know, I'm curious as to how this game came about. I probably should have checked the Discord comment that it came along with, but just a very fun game. Nice to see some elite builds facing off. Dragon Prince's lack of AP comes back to haunt them a little bit here. And again, given the build constraints, I almost wonder if these Dragon Princes were cut for Phoenix Guard, just to have anti-infantry AP. Maybe it would have actually worked out a little bit better. You could kind of box up with these sisters a little bit more. Yeah, let's take a look. Let me remind myself in terms of Teclis spell kit. It's been quite some time since I've used him, if I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't 100% remember exactly his spell kit. There's so much to remember now in this game. Sometimes I lose track of things, but I know, yeah, Net of Ammontalk's pretty good. Flaming Sword of Ruin also great. Teclis just really doesn't have that great of damage output options. And sort of where the meta is right now, a lot of the time, besides healing, which is nice to have, area of effect damage is also kind of one of the mainstays of multiplayer. Boundfire Convocation's okay. This has a pretty long wind-up time. If you can get it to connect, it can do an insane amount of damage, but I don't know, a little bit tricky to execute in practice. And then the rest of his abilities, again, Chain Lightning's okay. It's not super reliable. So, while I do like the pickup Teclis to a large degree, not going to offer much combat power on his horse. And so if you are going to take him, you know, not that much more to upgrade to the Arcane Phoenix. Again, maybe you come in and cut one of those other units. But honestly, there's some other decent lord choices. Tyrion is also, if you want kind of a fire resistance combat lord on horseback, has some decent support abilities. I mean, Stand Your Ground is okay, I suppose, as a support ability. Not incredible, but it's certainly there. Sunfang also a little bit of AoE damage. Again, not incredible. Mostly you're paying here for the combat power. You know, hunt down whatever single entities. He can definitely stand and fight against a lot of big, scary stuff, certainly. Although something on the level of like Scarbrand might be a little bit hard to deal with. Hard to say. Not an expert by any means, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I mean, obviously, Imric is a big choice here as well, especially on the dragon. Can pretty much kill anything on Khorne's roster in a 1v1 fight. Offers you AoE damage with his breath attacks. Great support as well with map-wide Dragonhorn. Is incredibly expensive, though, and pretty much requires you to take healing with him, right? So Lore of Life, you kind of factor all of these things in here, which... arguably, you should be taking Lore of Life for Dwellers anyway, right now, given it's still not been nerfed. And you get some extra power reserves here. So, yeah, something like this, granted, you're now spending at 4,200, 1,300 almost on your leadership, which is going to preclude you from taking as many elite units in your army. So you'll kind of have to figure that out. But it's definitely an interesting matchup, sort of a little bit of back and forth here, and one I want to explore more in the future. So look forward to that in future videos. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.